Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video we'll be taking a deep dive into the Warcry Thralls. In this video we'll be using the Warcry core book, where we'll look at some of the rules that tell us how we can include thralls in our warband. We'll also be using some of the supplement books for the Agents of Chaos, Bringers of Death and Harbingers of Destruction, and in those we'll find the Monster and Thrall section that's going to give us just one paragraph of information that we need. The warbands in the Sentinels of Order don't have access to any thralls, so we'll just be using those other three supplement books for the rest of this video. Right, let's get started, and we'll go to the core book first and take a look at the rules we need to know to include thralls in our warband. In certain battles, you may be able to include thralls in your warband. This is usually in a campaign battle, and we've covered this in the How to Play Warcry series, and so this comes into play on certain campaign quests, where, for example, for each territory dominated by a warband, you can include one thrall. There are also other ways that you can include a thrall in your warband, for example the Sinister Bargain Twist card that allows a player to include one thrall. On page 49 of the core rulebook, it tells us that if a player is allowed to include any thralls in their warband, they can choose any fighter with the Chaotic Beast faction rune mark that also has the Thrall rune mark, and they can use those to become their thrall and include those fighters in their warband for that battle. It also says that thralls are ignored for the purposes of the rule that requires fighters in a warband to all share the same rune mark. This rule would make sense when you consider when the game came out originally. All the warbands were from the Grand Alliance of Chaos, but now we can play all the other different Grand Alliances. I don't think it makes sense to use a Chaotic Beast in, for example, a Stormcast Eternal warband from the Grand Alliance of Order. So I think going by the rule here, and especially where it says thralls are ignored for the purposes of a rule that requires fighters in a warband to share the same faction rune mark, you could use these thralls, the Chaotic Beast thralls, in any Grand Alliance faction warband. But for me, narratively, I don't think it works, so I would just stick to using the Chaotic Beasts for a Chaos warband. And I also think these rules were really written around the Furies and the Raptorics that were included in the original Warcry starter set. But there's just one more thing to mention from the core book, and that's that when a Chaotic Beast is chosen to become a thrall, it is no longer subject to the territorial predators or the bestial intellects rule, and is instead treated as a friendly fighter in your warband. Now let's jump back to those supplement books, and in each supplement book, under the Monster and Thrall section, there's going to be a very small paragraph that tells you how you can use thralls in your warband, and here it is. It's pretty much like this for each of the different Grand Alliances, and it tells us that you'll find fighter cards and abilities for the types of thralls you can use, and each of the fighters, in this case for the Agents of Chaos, each of the fighters has the Chaotic Beast faction rune mark and the Thrall rune mark, and these fighters can be included in Chaos warbands using the rules that we've just gone through from the core book. And now here's an example of one of those fighter cards. I picked the Fury that we'll all know from the main set. And here you can see the Chaotic Beast faction rune mark right at the top, and then we've got rune marks for the different abilities, and then this rune mark here is the Thrall rune mark, so look out for that on all the cards. And here I've picked out 3 fighter cards, one for each of the different Grand Alliances that actually come with thralls, and you can see I've circled each of the different faction rune marks. So we've got the Chaotic Beast there, we've got the Destruction, and we've got the Death rune mark as well. Anytime you've got a thrall in your warband, they can use the universal abilities, so that's really great that they've got all these open to them, as well as their individual special abilities that they can use. They can't use the warband abilities though, but they can use the ability dice just as a regular fighter in the warband would do. Now we've gone through the basic rules for including thralls in your warband, let's take a look at all of the thralls individually, and we'll start with the Fury. And the Fury came in the Chaotic Beast set and also in the main Warcry core set, the first one that was released. So this guy's a real beast at 70 points. We've got that Thrall rune mark, we've got the Chaotic Beast rune mark at the top. They can fly, and a rune mark for an ability that's unique to the Fury. Got a movement of 8, toughness 3, and they can take 8 wounds. So being able to fly with that movement 8 is really good. They can attack with a range of 1, make 3 attacks, strength 3, and they're going to deal 1 to 2 on a crit. So there we go, for 70 points you're getting a lot of movement there with that 8 inches of movement, and they can fly. And if you can combine that with a universal ability of double rush, you can add 1 to that move characteristic for each movement they make in their activation. So I think combining those two could be amazing for getting the Fury into a good position. But as well as those universal abilities, the Fury has their own ability, which is a triple called Cower. And until the end of the battle round, count each critical hit from attack actions that target this fighter as a hit instead. So this is pretty useful if you're making a lot of attacks to get rid of these, because this guy's going to be really annoying with that huge movement. But if you can start attacking him, then those critical hits aren't going to count as critical hits anymore. They're only going to count as hits. So that's a really big ability for this fighter. Now we're on to his partner in crime, the Raptorix, and this also came in the Chaotic Beast box set and the original core set for Warcry. This one's a little bit higher in the points at 105. We've got that Chaotic Beast rune mark, the Flaming Skull, we know we're going to get an ability with that, and the Thrall rune mark. The movement is 5, so a lot less than that 8, and no fly rune mark here either, even though he's got those crazy wings, and he's got a toughness of 4 and can take 12 wounds. And this crazy beast has also got a weapon range of 1, but they can make 2 attacks, strength 4, and they're going to deal a lot more damage. 2 on a normal hit, 5 on a critical hit. So the points value there for 105 gives you a lot more opportunity to do some damage against the enemy. So although they can't move as much, if you can get in range and get them in the fight, and 5 isn't too bad either, that's not bad at all. Again, using that double rush to get in there, and then potentially using the onslaught maybe instead, so you can make some extra attacks to the attack characteristic, then I think that could be a pretty valuable Thrall to have in your warband. But let's take a look at the ability that comes with the Raptorix, and this is a triple called Crazed Flock. And until the end of this fighter's activation, for each other friendly fighter within 3 inches of this fighter that has the same rune marks as this fighter, add 1 to the attacks and strength characteristics of attack actions made by this fighter that have a range characteristic of 3 or less. So yeah, you could get these in a flock and then they're going to do some damage together, but you know, you've got to meet all the conditions to be able to have more than one Thrall in your warband. And so as long as you meet those though, I think this could be a pretty useful triple, but on their own you've still got that onslaught if you wanted it. Next, we've got the Chaos Warhound, and I've got a set of these. I think they're really great. Although they're pretty old sculpts, I think they hold up really well, and they look awesome, really fun to play, and you get 10 in the box as well for a pretty good price. But here we go. He's 70 points. He's got that nice movement 8 again, but he can't fly, obviously, but he's got a movement 8, toughness 3, and he can take 10 wounds. We've got a rune mark we haven't seen yet, and he's got the Thrall rune mark and also the Beast rune mark. And the Beast rune mark is going to restrict him from moving through archways. So just bear that in mind if you're going to use him in your warband for your different tactics. This guy's going to be attacking with his teeth and claws at a range of 1. He's got 3 attacks, strength 3, dealing 1 to 3 on a crit. So certainly nowhere near as much damage output as that Raptorix, but you've got a nice movement 8 there. So if you can get him close enough, then you can really annoy the enemy and move him around quite quickly to claim some objectives and things like that too. But for 70 points, 10 wounds and a movement 8, that's not bad at all. Now let's have a look at the ability that comes with that Scout rune mark. And this is a double called Outrunner of Chaos. And here we add half the value of this ability, rounding up to the move characteristic of this fighter for the next move action they make this activation. So we need to be getting high rolls here. 5 or 6 is going to get us 3 that we can add to that move characteristic, but we can only do it to the next move action, not every one. So you're only going to get 3 to that next one, but it does mean you could potentially move 8, then the extra 3, and then make an attack as well. So that's pretty good. 11 inches and then making an attack. That's pretty awesome actually. Now we've got the Chaos Spawn. This is a really interesting looking model. I haven't paid much attention to these really until I made this video, but this looks pretty cool. I could imagine having one of these in the warband. But points value, they're pretty high though, 175 points, and they've got a movement of 5, toughness 4, and they can take 30 wounds. They can really take some damage. And let's see if they can dish it out too. They've got a weapon range of 1. They can make 4 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 4 on a crit. And then we've got the Thrall rune mark, the Chaotic Beast rune mark, and we've also got the Agile rune mark, so we're going to get another ability we can use here. But in the universal abilities, the Onslaught is going to come in handy here for sure. Being able to add 1 to that 4 attacks is going to take that up to 5, and that's going to be pretty good. And if you can make 2 attack actions in 1 activation, then you're going to be having 10 dice to roll against the enemy, dishing out 2 to 4, 4 being on a crit, 2 on a regular. That's going to do a lot of damage, I think. Now let's have a look at the ability that comes with that Agile rune mark, and this is a triple called Writhing Tentacles, which definitely sounds painful. And here we can add the value of this ability to the attacks characteristic of the next attack action made by this fighter, this activation, that has a range characteristic of 3 or less. So this is pretty huge. Here we're adding the value of the ability. So if you're getting a 6, you can add 6 to the attacks characteristic of the next action, not both, just the next one. So you've got 10 dice straight away in that 1 attack. So that's an awesome triple. That guy's a pretty good fighter actually. For 175 points, I think you get quite a lot there. Now we're on to another crazy looking model, the Razor Gore. And I fancy getting one of these. I don't have one yet, but even though it's an old model, again, it looks pretty interesting. He's got a lot of tusks and horns going on here, but for 185 points, we're getting that nice movement again, a movement of 8, toughness 4, and can take 25 wounds. We've got a rune mark for an ability we haven't seen yet, Thrall rune mark, and that Beast rune mark. So again, he's going to be limited, can't go through those archways and doors. And then for attack, it's going to be a lot of fangs going on from a range of 1. And we can make 4 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 5 on a crit. So he can do quite a bit of damage here. So now he's on par with the Raptorix for the damage output, but can make a lot more attacks with that 4 attack characteristic. Razor Gore has his own ability, which is a triple called Uncontrollable Stampede. And until the end of this fighter's activation, the next time this fighter finishes a move action within 1 inch of an enemy fighter, pick an enemy fighter within 1 inch of this fighter. Then allocate a number of damage points to that fighter equal to the value of this ability. So if we're getting 5s or 6s, this is going to be great. 555 or 666, we can immediately just allocate 6 damage points if we're within that 1 inch. So that's pretty good. You do have to finish a move action though. That's an important part of this ability, I think. So yeah, you've got to finish that move action within 1 inch, and then you can just simply allocate a number of damage points equal to the value of the ability. Nice. So that really plays into the narrative. This guy charging in, and he's certainly going to do a lot of damage if he gets close. Now we're moving on to the thralls that you can use for the Grand Alliance of Death. These are taken from the Bringers of Death supplement book, and we're starting off with a bat swarm. And I think you've got lots of options for models here, especially with the Cursed City models that came out. You can certainly use some of those for this. And the swarm's going to come in at 75 points with a movement 10, toughness 2. That's not very good, pretty low, but they can take 6 wounds. That's not very good either. They can fly though, so that's going to come in really handy with that movement. They've got the Thrall rune mark, they've got the Agile rune mark, and the Death rune mark at the top there. They'll be attacking from a range of 1, and they can make 5 attacks, so that's really nice. But then when you look at the strength, that's not so good at 2, and they're going to do 1 to 3 damage. So 3 on a crit, 1 on a regular hit. So you've got some nice movement there for 75. You can make a lot of attacks, so there's a lot of dice going on, but the strength is very low at 2, and the damage output's not high either. But 1 to 3 you'd expect for 75 points. But I think for these, really, they're just going to annoy the enemy, but also be quite handy to get near those objectives. So a bit of a mixed bag with the Bat Swarm. And here's their ability, and it's just a double now. This is called Bloodsuckers, and here we can pick a visible enemy fighter within 1 inch of this fighter. Allocate D6 damage points to that fighter. Then you can remove a number of damage points from this fighter equal to the roll. So that's a huge ability for a double. As long as you get close to an enemy fighter, you can just allocate an immediate D6 damage points to them, and then you get those points taken off your damage points. So that's amazing. So there we go. That's a really good ability for a double. So for 75 points, these have become pretty interesting now. Next, we've got the Direwolf, and these are from a new set, which look really awesome. Some great sculpts, and these are going to come in at 70 points. They've got a movement 8, toughness 3, and can take 10 wounds, so 10's not bad. They've got the Thrall rune mark, they've also got the Scout rune mark, and the Death rune mark. They've got no Beast rune mark, though I was surprised to see, so they can go through arches and doorways, no problem. They've got an attack range of 1. They're going to make 3 attacks, strength 3, and they're going to deal 1 to 3, 3 on a crit, 1 on a normal hit. So for 70 points, you've got a nice movement, a decent amount of wounds they can take, but they're not going to do a lot of damage, these ones. With that Scout rune mark, they get an ability called Slavering Charge, and this is a double, and here a fighter can use this ability only if there is a visible enemy fighter within 6 inches of them. This fighter makes a bonus move action and must finish closer to the closest visible enemy fighter than they were at the start of that move action. So another really good double here. You're just getting a free movement, really. There's a really good chance there's going to be a visible enemy fighter within 6 inches, especially in some of the later rounds. And so you can get a free movement there. So a great double. I think these are some really good abilities for the Thralls for the Grand Alliance of Death so far. And I have to include this image in here from that set. This is a great one with a crow just pecking away at his back there. I think this is a great model. I was going to get some of these and I didn't when the price came out for them. But looking at them again here, I think I really should. They're really good looking models. But this one's particularly good, so I had to include it. And the final Thrall we can include for the Death Thralls is going to be the Fellbat. And this is 105 points. We've got a nice movement of 10. Toughness 3, and can take 12 wounds, and they can fly, so that 10 distance there flying is going to be amazing. We've got the Thrall rune mark, the Screaming Skull rune mark, and we've also got the Death rune mark. And so we've got an attack range of 1, can make 3 attacks, strength 3, dealing 2 to 4 on a crit. So decent damage output, not very strong there though. So really you're looking at that movement, the ability to fly and taking those 12 wounds. But let's have a look at the ability that they get with that skull though, because they might get some really good abilities like those other two. And this one is called the Scent of Gore, and this is a triple. And here a fighter can use this ability only if there is a visible enemy fighter within 1 inch of them that has 5 or more damage points allocated to them. This fighter then makes a bonus attack action. Okay, so they've got to be visible, the enemy fighter does, and they've got to be within 1 inch, and they have to have 5 or more damage points allocated to them. So this ability is going to come as the rounds move on from, like, certainly to the second round and beyond. So not one of the best abilities here, but I think those other two really stand out to me. The first one, the Bat Swarm, was really great. So although I wasn't that impressed by the Bat Swarm at first, the abilities really sold it. So I think out of the Death Thralls, for me, it's the Bat Swarm. But which one do you like the best out of these three? That covers all the Death Thralls, so now we're on to the Destruction Thralls. And we're starting off with a good one. This is the Fellwater Troggoth. This comes in a set of 3, so you've got 3 different models with different poses to choose from. But this one's going to be 190 points. Got a movement 4, toughness 4, can take 28 wounds, so that's really nice. We've got the Thrall rune mark, the Brute rune mark, and the Destroyer rune mark. So this one's going to get 2 abilities on top of those universal ones, so this is pretty cool. And attack-wise, this is going to be a range of 1, going to make 3 attacks, strength 5, and we're doing a huge amount of damage now. It's going to be 3 on a normal hit, 6 on a critical hit. So that's a huge amount of damage, and for 190 points, this guy's got quite a lot to offer. You can take 28 wounds, huge damage output, and he's strong as well, and gets 2 abilities. So let's have a look at those now. So the first ability is a double called Noxious Vomit, and here we can roll a number of dice equal to the value of this ability. For each 4+, pick 1 visible enemy fighter within 6 inches of this fighter. Then allocate D3 damage points to that fighter. So a nice double there. So as long as we get high numbers again, 5s or 6, we can roll 5 or 6 dice. For every 4+, that visible enemy fighter is going to get D3 damage. So potentially a fair amount of damage there. We've got a few conditions to get there, but if we did, can do a little bit of damage there, so that's not bad for a double. But he's also got another double called Troggoth Regrowth, and here we can remove a number of damage points from this fighter equal to the value of this ability. So that's a great double again. I like the bat one because you could do some damage and get those points back too. But here you just simply remove a number of damage points equal to the value of the ability. So 5s or 6s again, you're putting those wounds back off, and this guy can be back in the fight. So with 28 to start with and this double ability, I think this is a great model and a great fighter to have in your warband. And now we're on to our final Thrall, and again it's the Destruction Thrall, the Rockgut Troggoth. A great looking model. This comes in a set of 3 again with different poses. It also comes in the Gloomspite Git Start Collecting set, and I've got one of those to unbox real soon because I want to get these built. I think they look fantastic. But for 190 points, you got a movement 4, toughness 5, and he can take 28 wounds. He's got the Brute rune mark, the Thrall rune mark, and the Destruction rune mark. The weapon is going to be a range of 1, 3 attacks, strength 5, dealing 2 to 5 on a crit. So he's not going to do as much damage as the previous one we saw, the Fellwater Troggoth. But, he's still got 3 attacks, strength 5 is nice, and he's going to do 2 damage on a normal hit and 5 on a critical hit. So he really does have that toughness 5 as well. So he's got a little bit more toughness, but he can't make as many attacks, and the damage isn't going to be as much either. So it's really weighing up which one you do. But if you can bring 2 Thralls in, how cool would it be to have one of each of these, especially if you're playing the Gloomspite Gits and you've got all these tiny models and you have these 2 big ones in there. I think that'd be really fun and it would just look great. And our Rockgut Troggoth here shares that double Troggoth Regrowth ability that we've just seen with the Fellwater Troggoth. And so, yeah, he's going to be able to get those points back. So again, starting off with 28 is pretty high already. For 190, that's really good. And now he can even recoup some of those damage points as well. So I really like these 2 from the Destruction Thralls, and a great way to finish the video. There we go, that's all the Thralls from those 3 different Grand Alliances, and I'd love to know which one you like the best. Does one stand out to you? Which one's your favourite? For me, I'm quite drawn to the Bat Swarm and the Direwolves from the Death Thralls. I think they're really awesome. But for looks-wise, it's got to go to Destruction. Those Troggoths are really awesome. If you like the look of some of these Thralls and you don't have them already, then I'll put a link in the description below to Element Games where you can save up to 20% on loads of the different models you can see here. The Gloomspite Git Start Collecting set is great value if you can get hold of that. You get some really good miniatures in there. But here I've got an example of the Chaotic Beasts for Warcry, which the RRP is $27.50, but here you can get them for $23.37. So that link's in the description. It's an affiliate link. It won't cost you extra. You'll save that money and support the channel as I get a small commission from every sale made. So thanks so much for that. If you choose to take a look, I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the video and that you give Thralls a go in your game. For me, if I'm just playing like a fun game, I'll just include Thralls in my warband without worrying too much about the rules, and just include them as I would a regular fighter for the points wise, but then use their abilities. Next, I'll be working on looking at some allies, also a little bit about heroes, and looking at how we can use some Underworlds miniatures in our games as well. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Please like if you like it, subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to join me next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games. If you like this kind of content and would like to support the channel, then please check out my Patreon page, and thanks to everyone who's joined so far. It's really awesome. We hang out on Discord, talk about the hobby, share ideas and help each other out, and you'll get some perks there that you're not going to find anywhere else. So I'll put a link in the description, and it'd be great to see you there.